everyone, welcome back to Susan Dawn Spiritual Connections. Welcome to a brand new Sacred Union Energy Update. All right, so we've had a couple of updates over the past couple of days. Energy is really shifting. Like I had shared, these next 10 days from the 7-7 portal to the 7-17 portal feels really, getting the word auspicious. It feels very powerful. It feels very significant. And I feel like there's a lot of light codes that are coming in, and those light codes might be kind of um, bringing up some stuff to be released, some stuff to be purged. It's almost like I'm seeing like a strands of light coming through, and it's almost like it's well, metaphorically, it's shining light on the shadows, continuing to shine light on the shadows, so you can release it so that more of those light codes can anchor in, so you can embody more of that light, right? That's essentially what's happening. But I'm seeing it as an analogy of, it's almost like there's this like hunk of rock in the middle of your solar plexus, and that rock is like pain, trauma, heartbreak, patterns, beliefs, old energy, just really old energy that just kind of sits within the solar plexus. And what happens when these light codes stream in is it almost like breaks up that rock and scatters that so that it can come up to the surface to be released. So it's not just this hunk of like poison. It's not this hunk of toxic energy that's sitting there anymore. It's transmuting the energy. It's distilling the energy so that it's like it's almost like that debris is what's coming up now. And so you might be feeling things as like a little bit of a pinpricky energy, some minor triggers, some minor things. And as we shared earlier in an earlier reading, it's like adjustments. These are just adjustments. Continued healing is all about adjusting. It's about, okay, this is still bothering me. What do I need to look at? And just allowing yourself to go deeper. I feel like the big stuff, the really heavy stuff, we've been clearing that and clearing that and clearing that, and now it's about the adjustment, especially as you're embodying more and more of those light codes. And so I feel like what's been coming up for the Divine Feminines over the past 2 days, and some of you have, as I shared this over on Threads, the new platform, I decided that I'll be able to share some little updates, energy updates as they're happening. It might be a good platform for that, but you'll get the most out of here on YouTube and over on Instagram. There's going to be my main platforms. But I did share, and a lot of you messaged me and said, yes, I've been feeling anger too. So this feels very collective, and I feel like this reading is going to be more so for the Divine Feminine than for the Divine Masculine. So what I had shared, I'm just going to read it really quickly. Anger might be surfacing for the DFs with regards to how they were unjustly treated by the Divine Masculine. And your anger is justified. Let yourself feel your emotions without excusing or bypassing them. Just don't become attached to them. You can take accountability for your lack of boundaries and allowing yourself to be treated poorly while also holding your partner accountable for their own poor actions and behaviors. This is really important. I feel like for a lot of Divine Feminines, especially on this journey, it's almost like, and I feel like this is a habit that the Divine Feminines have learned throughout their lifetime, where they soak up other people's emotions kind of like a sponge, where they take on the blame, they take on the responsibility, they take on the burden of other people's welfare, of other people's care. And for a lot of Divine Feminines, myself included, it's almost like we don't want to see anybody hurting. We don't want to see anybody suffering, especially our closest loved ones. We want to protect them, but we can go to the extreme in such that we are sacrificing ourselves, we're neglecting ourselves, and we're abandoning ourselves for other people. You can't live other people's journeys for them. You can't do other people's journeys for them, and you can't make decisions and choices for them. All you can do is honor the choices and decisions that they're making for themselves. And if they are making choices and decisions that are not honoring of you, that's where you have to make the choice to honor yourself. And that's where your own self-love and your own self-worth come into play. And that's what you've been learning on your ascension journey, is how to love yourself and how to come home to yourself, so that you are not abandoning yourself anymore, so that you're not neglecting yourself, so that you're not rejecting yourself, particularly when it comes to other people. And your twin, your divine counterpart, is going to be the greatest catalyst for this. They're going to be the greatest mirror for this, to show you where you had been rejecting yourself, where you have been abandoning yourself, where you have been neglecting yourself, especially for the sake of them. This does not mean that you don't love them. This does not mean that you don't support them. This does not mean that you don't care for them. This does not mean that you don't want to protect them or try to protect them. This does not mean that you don't help them in ways that you can. But you have the boundary now, the healthy, conscious boundary, where you recognize that you are not sacrificing yourself, that you are not over giving, that you're not overindulging. That's what a healthy, conscious partnership is all about. It's about partnership. It's I water you and you water me. And if one person, if you're just watering the other person, then you're not being nourished yourself, and you have to be nourished yourself. And sometimes, yes, it's about you nourishing yourself so that you're filling up your own cup. But also, when you are in a healthy connection, when you are in a relationship, when you are in a partnership, it's allowing yourself to be nurtured and receiving that from your partner. That is equally important, because it is about a healthy connection within the physical realm. That physical partnership is important as well. So there's a lot of balance that comes into play here, especially when it comes to first within yourself, but then second within the connection, second within the partnership. And if you're just watering and watering and watering, well, guess what happens? Then sometimes the plant will just drown, right? The plant feels suffocated, the plant feels pressured, it's too much. There has to be a healthy balance so that you can water yourselves and water each other. And so, for example, if you're having a really hard time with something, that's when you can absolutely turn to your partner and say, hey, I need a little bit more love today. And your partner, if they are emotionally stable and emotionally secure, then they are able to offer that to you. And they should be willing to put in that effort to offer that to you. And same for you, for the other person. If they're struggling, then you can hold space for that person or offer support to that person. That's where healthy communication comes in as well. That's where honest communication comes in as well. That's where you know yourself enough to say, hey, I need this right now, or to communicate those needs, or to communicate how it is that you're feeling, so that not one person within the connection feels neglected, because the relationship becomes that third energy. The relationship needs to be nourished as well. So there's you, there's your partner, and then there's a relationship that is that third energy. It's like the relationship is that child that you give birth to, that you nurture. You nurture the relationship as well. And so if you had not experienced that within your connection, you can understand this now from a much more conscious place, because of the healing that you've done and the growth that you've done and the learning that you've done along your journey. But if you had not experienced this in the past, then there might be some anger that's coming up with regards to how you were treated in the past from former connections, including your counterpart, and how you allowed yourself to be treated. Going back to how divine feminines especially kind of soak it all in and take on all the blame. Yes, you have to look in the mirror at yourself and take accountability for your part. But it does not excuse the other person from their role that they played. Absolutely not. You both take accountability. You both take responsibility for the parts that you played. It's almost like there's this energy or this message of, yes, you look in the mirror, but you don't have to take on all of that blame for yourself. You're not meant to. You're not supposed to, because you're not the only one at fault. You're not the only one to blame, so to speak. And I don't like that word. It's just about accountability. Accountability is taking responsibility where responsibility needs to be had. And so you can take responsibility and accountability for your lack of boundaries that you might have had. And again, you don't know what you don't know, so have for compassion and forgive yourself. And you can have compassion for the other person, that they might not have known what they didn't know. They might have been acting out of wounding. They might have been acting out of stress. They might have been acting out of not knowing how to commit to a relationship, or not knowing how to put in the effort for a relationship, or whatever it is, whatever the scenario was. So you can have compassion and forgiveness for the other person, but you don't have to take that all on yourself. You can have responsibility for yourself and hold yourself accountable, and at the same time hold the other person accountable. And that's where you allow yourself to repair the connection, if it is a truly healthy connection where you want to repair and you want to reconcile. That's where you repair the connection through apologies, through honest communication, through vulnerable communication, through transparent communication. Communication is what brings you closer. Communication is what allows for the intimacy, and intimacy is what builds the bond of connection. It's, you already have that foundation of connection with your person, but that open communication, transparency, and intimacy is what creates further energy within you two. The energy exchange between you two is what creates a union, essentially. So you do not have to carry the full weight of your connection on your shoulders. You are not meant to. You're not meant to carry this journey on your shoulders, Divine Feminine, and for so long you had. And that was part of the stress and the challenge and the difficulty and even the pain of your journey, is that you were carrying the fullness of the connection of your connection, of the journey, along your journey. You were just carrying it all, and you're not meant to. You're not meant to carry your counterpart. You're not meant to carry the fullness of the connection. And if the counterpart is not reciprocal of the connection, then that's where you allow yourself to say, okay, is this connection actually adding value to my life? Or is it depleting me? Is it draining me? Am I actually happy? As much as I love this person, as connected as I know that we are in the physical, is it actually serving both of our highest goods? Is it actually helping us? Are we actually connecting? Are we actually building more intimacy? Are we actually building more connection? Are we on the same page? Are we in alignment? And if the answer is no, then that's where you have to make choices for yourself. And so I feel like a lot of anger is coming up for the way that you allowed yourself to be treated, and the way that you even treated yourself, and the way that your counterpart may have treated you, maybe the way that the journey itself had played out. Now, this anger doesn't feel like it's lasting. It doesn't feel like it's sticking. It just feels like it's like residual energy, like little tendrils of energy that's coming up just to be released. So there's no resentment. There's no like true, there's no like resistance. There's no, just resentment is the right word. There's no resentment here. There's no blame here. There's no projection here. It's just allowing yourself to feel it. Allow the anger to move through you. Allow yourself to recognize any of the other accompanying emotions that need to be released, including compassion for your partner's experience, because this is your growth, having compassion for and being able to see the higher perspective of, okay, I can understand what they were going through. I can understand how they might be mirroring back to me. I can understand how I might be mirroring back to them. I can understand, and have compassion for where we were. While also allowing myself to let this anger move through me so that I can release it. Because you're not meant to bypass. If you're feeling an emotion, let yourself feel that emotion. Don't attach to it, but let yourself feel that emotion. You're not meant to suppress that emotion. You're not meant to bypass it. You're meant to feel it so that you can move through it. Also, acknowledge the old stories and beliefs that are linked to these emotions, and forgive yourself as you consciously align to new energies. Shift your beliefs. Say, okay, again, you don't know what you don't know. Say, okay, I can see and understand. This might be where some of the anger is coming from. I can see and understand where I was in my wounded state and where he was in his wounded state, and where we're reflecting that back to each other. And now I'm aligning to a different belief. Now I'm aligned to a different energy. And so I'm letting the anger of the past come up so that I can release it, so that I can move forward into more peace. This is your healing. And then you vow that you will never again accept less than the love that you deserve. This is your power. So allow yourself to feel that anger. I'm not somebody who gets angry by nature. I never have been. Maybe that's the Libra in me. I'm very peaceful. I let things slide a lot. Not because, I don't like confrontation and I don't like conflict, but also because it's almost like, is it worth it? That's something that I've learned along my life journey is it worth it? Is it worth the energy? Is it worth the time? Is it worth the effort? Is it worth getting angry? Is it worth it? And so I let a lot of things just kind of roll off my back. I let a lot of things kind of go. But you can only be pushed so much, and that's the Aries in me. There's a meme that says I'm love and light and don't fuck with me, and I feel like that's me entirely. Like, I am a lot of love and light, and I'm a lot of peace, but I'm also very much do not fuck with me. So like that's like the underlying energy. Like, you can only be pushed so much, you can only be triggered so much. And so at that point, that's when you allow yourself to feel the anger. That's when you allow yourself to say, okay, you know what? This is not okay. And it's like, that's where you have that point where you say, there's a boundary. That's when you allow yourself to say, I'm not going to be treated like this. That's when you allow yourself to say, I deserve more. And I know I deserve more because I love myself to know that I deserve more. And so I learned early on in this healing journey to allow myself to be angry that, conflict is okay. Again, I don't like confrontation. I don't like conflict because conflict and confrontation always equated to abuse and violence in the past for me. But there was something very interesting with regards to my divine counterpart. He used to say, allow yourself to be angry. And I used to say, but I'm not angry. And I genuinely wasn't angry because, again, things feel pretty peaceful. If it's not worth my time and my energy, like, why should I get angry if it's not worth it? If it just didn't feel like it was worth it. But there are certain times when there is conflict, that there is disagreement, that there is confrontation, and I became more and more comfortable with that. Not that that is like I'm still a very peaceful, loving person. That's what I strive for. But there are certain times that there is going to be conflict, that there is going to be confrontation, that there is going to be disagreement. And so allowing yourself to become more comfortable with that is really vital. Allowing yourself to be comfortable with your anger because the anger is showing you something about yourself. And so it's interesting because my counterpart, my ex, my catalyst, I don't know what I want to call him, he really showed me that about myself. And he showed me how to heal that underlying fear of conflict and confrontation from the past. And that comes down to having really healthy boundaries and also knowing when to let it go and when to confront. Because in the past I had just let it go and let it go and let it go, because it just didn't seem worth it. But there are times when it's worth it, and that's when you repair. And in healthy connections, conflict, confrontation, disagreements will always lead to repair, will always lead to communication, will always lead to conversation in order to repair the connection or to repair whatever it was that was creating that conflict. That's what healthy conscious connection is all about. And so allow yourself to feel angry if the anger is coming up, because it's showing you something. And it's not usually, anger is usually a complex emotion. It's not just one emotion. There's usually something underneath the surface. It could be disappointment that you're actually feeling that is expressing itself through anger. It can be betrayal. It can be grief. Usually, a large percentage of the time, it's some kind of grief that is presenting itself as anger, because it's difficult to feel those heavier emotions, and so it comes out as anger. But once you work through the anger, then that's when you move into the underlying emotions of grief or disappointment or whatever it is, sadness, whatever it is that's coming up, that's really coming up. But allow yourself to feel whatever it is that's coming up, even if it is anger, so that you can move through it. So again, Divine Feminines, I feel like there might be some remnants of the past that you might be working through. But again, it just feels like remnants. It just feels like adjustments. It just feels like more acknowledgement of how far you've really come. And so allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you feel. It is completely justified, especially if you have experiences. Your experiences are your experiences. Do not let anybody kind of gaslight you or deny you your experiences. There could be another side to that experience. There could be another side to that story. Other people that you've had disagreement or conflict with or confrontation with can have their own truth, can have their own experiences, but it does not deny you yours. So what you feel and what you've experienced is completely justified. Allow yourself to heal, allow yourself to move through it, move through to forgiveness, move through to more love, move through to more compassion for yourself and for the other parties involved, because that's what it's about. It's about coming back to the love. You don't deny yourself the difficult emotions that you're feeling, but you come back to the love. That's what's most important. And that's the repair, right? That's the repair. You repair the connection, you repair the consciousness, essentially the unity consciousness. You're repairing that, but you don't deny what it is that you're feeling, because that denial is suppression, and that suppression will just fester and it will just boil over and become reactive or become toxic, So allow yourself to move through whatever it is that you need to move through. I do feel like the energy is much lighter. I feel like there was a lot of that anger and that energy coming up. But again, it's almost like you weren't attaching it. You weren't attaching a story to it. You were just like acknowledging the anger, acknowledging what made you angry so that you could release it. So that you could understand it and release it. Again, it doesn't feel like there's any attachment to it. It's just a feeling that's coming up to the surface. Um, and again, the energy does feel a little bit lighter, like almost like we've been transmuting it, and we've been moving through it. And yeah, it definitely feels better. It feels like we've moved through that, almost like we've moved past it. So take it as if it resonates for you. Disregard it if it doesn't. If you're not feeling that, don't force it. Definitely don't force it. The collective might have been transmuting it as a whole for you as well if you're not feeling it. So let's see. Yeah, there's value, a lot of value coming up, especially for the divine feminines. Maybe you didn't feel valued within the connection. Maybe you weren't valuing yourself. So there's a lot of that was coming up. But again, remember, you're in a different energy, and that's just old energy that's coming up to be released as you acknowledge that you're in a different energy now. And so you're valuing yourself more, you're recognizing yourself more, and as such, you're allowing yourself to, number one, disregard anything that does not value you. You are almost like rejecting anything that does not value you in order to receive that which does, because you're in a new energy, you're in a new timeline, you're in a new phase of your journey, and this is like a higher frequency of yourself where you're aligned with that which you are, and that which you are is love, and you're valuing yourself, believing in yourself in a higher level, in a higher state now. All right, so divine masculines have felt pretty quiet. And that might have been a little bit triggering as well. For myself, I had communication, well, I'd had some kind of communication with divine masculine, or my previous divine, I don't know what you call them, whatever you call them, but the catalyst partner that I've talked about. I had some kind of communication. It was not pleasant. It just didn't feel nice. And then all of a sudden, it's like gone and silent again, and that kind of inconsistency just never felt good. I always felt like ignored. I always felt, just that kind of thing, and I had to work through that within my own journey and heal that within myself. And so that was a trigger for me. However, it feels like these divine masculines are not going into hermit mode on purpose. It doesn't feel like they're going into hermit mode intentionally, as in like they're going silent again after communication to trigger you. It feels like there's a lot of contemplation. It feels like there's a lot of clarity, illumination that's coming in for them. I did a Sacred Union energy update. You haven't met the new me yet over on the Patreon, and I shared a little bit of that over here on YouTube, but make sure that you are checking out the Patreon readings as well for the full spectrum of what's going on. So I did a reading over there, and it does feel like this hermit energy is, I'm getting almost like a cocoon for the divine masculine, because it feels like they're really transforming into a new version of themselves and wanting to choose a different timeline and a different life for themselves. And we've been picking up on that for a while now, but I've been getting that it's like now they're taking those first initial steps. Now they are making those active choices, and that is divine masculine energy. Divine masculine energy is an active energy. They are not in any way passive. They are active, and so they are actively making those steps. Maybe this is actively looking for a different job, or aligning to a new career, or making maybe they are actively seeking counseling or therapy or classes, or going back to school, or maybe they are actively coming towards healthier connections, or leaving connections that are toxic, or resolving connections that are toxic. It's going to play out in a number of different ways, but it's an active energy here. And that's very different from what we had experienced in the past. Now, again, I'm going to say this again. Take it as it resonates for you. There's a lot of different pathways that are opening up, a lot of different timelines that are opening up, and scenarios that are opening up. So this could be the original counterpart that is going through it, that you've been through this journey with, that is going through a massive growth and transformation. And I'm also hearing maturity. And it could be that there is a new counterpart that is coming in who has been going through their growth unbeknownst to you, because you don't know them yet, that is going to show up as the counterpart for you. So take it as it resonates for you. And if you don't know which scenario resonates, just surrender and just enjoy your path that you're on. Just enjoy your life and where you are now, and be in acceptance and surrender, and just be very present with your life. You don't have to have everything figured out. Just keep trusting your intuition and keep trusting that inner guidance and where you are being led. So, this is going to be a full reading on my regular YouTube channel. Patreon subscribers, this week I want to do something special for you guys. I want to do a past, present, and future reading. That's been coming in a lot. So we're going to do some specific readings as far as past, present, and future for a Sacred Union mini reading. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. I'm also running a summer love special that is very similar to the divine partnership readings that I used to do, much more in depth. I have limited slots available. You guys, because there's such a significant shift that's happening with the energy, you guys have been asking me for readings. I was going to close to all of July, but I've had delays in announcing my projects, and so my schedule has opened up. So we're going to have that reading special available for July. So make sure that you book to claim your slot. And then we'll have 8/8 portal reading in August. Those are the only two readings I'm going to do for the next couple of months, I think. Because I have some travel plans, and I'm not announcing that yet, but I'm very excited. Okay, so let's see what's going on for the Divine Masculine right now. Let's see what's going on. The world. Yeah, there's a significant cycle that has concluded for the Divine Masculine. A significant way of looking at themselves is what I'm hearing. There's been illumination on how they view themselves and how they viewed their life. I feel like they've been looking at their past and looking at their life, which has been very, very difficult for them. To look at themselves, to look in the mirror has been very difficult for them. There had been a lot of shame around that. There had been a lot of guilt around that, and even a lot of regret around that. But I feel like they've been moving through those shadow sides, whether consciously or subconsciously. They've been moving through that shadow work. I don't think divine masculines don't do it in the same way that the divine feminines do, with the journaling and the energy healing and things like that. They do it more through their own physical experiences. The divine masculine experiences the journey in a very different way. But you learn together. Especially if you're in communication with your counterpart, you can definitely learn from each other, and that will accelerate the growth and that will accelerate the healing. But what's happening for the Divine Masculine, as they've been looking at all of that, and it had been very difficult in the past, but they're getting a lot of illumination that is moving them forward. And it's like they're making the conscious choice of, I don't want to do things the way I did them in the past. I lived XYZ number of years this way. I want something different. They're recognizing their abilities as a conscious manifester. They're recognizing their own power. Now, not in arrogance and not in spiritual ego kind of power, but in recognizing the soul of themselves and recognizing their connection to God and their connection to the universe. If their connection to the universe had been kind of broken, quote unquote broken, fractured, fragmented, they're mending that, they're healing that through whatever source that is. It could be through whatever kind of beliefs that they have, but they're creating a personal connection to God's source. I had shared this on one of the Patreon live streams, that I had my own fractured connection with God's source in the past, and I think many of us do. And that's ultimately what separation is. That's ultimately what division is, right? Separation consciousness is that you are disconnected from God. That's separation in a nutshell. You can look at it that you're separated from your counterpart. You can look at it like you're separated from yourself, but ultimately you're separated from God's source. You're feeling disconnected. Now, that's why we say that separation is an illusion, because you can never be separated from God's source. God's source is who you are. Whatever it is that you want to call it, higher power, creator, the universe, God, whatever it is that you want to call it personally, it is your connection to God. God is part of you. The universe is part of you. You are made up of the universe, an aspect of God's source. You are a beautiful, unique thread in that whole tapestry of creation, and that creation is God's source itself. And so, in the past, especially with regards to my experience with illness, I had a very fractured connection with God. I was angry at God. I was feeling betrayed by God. And so ultimately that's where our wounding comes from. It comes from that separation or that disconnect from God. And you can narrow down, check out my Healing and Harmony series if you want to learn more about this, especially the separation video. I'll link it in the description box. That one is free on the channel. It's very powerful, very important. If you want to really dive deeper into the healing and heal the core belief, the root belief, it comes back to God. It all comes back to God and your connection with God. So what I had done when I was activated to this ascension journey is I really began to heal, come home to myself and heal my connection with God, come home to God. And it wasn't easy. I had been on this healing journey previous to my activation. I had been beginning to love myself more, to heal my connection with God. But when I was activated to ascension, that accelerated that healing, that accelerated that reconnecting with God. And so what I would do, especially my connection, my personal connection with Jesus, because I don't adhere to the templates of what other people believe when it comes to Jesus or Yeshua. But I had a vision one morning with regards to Jesus that never left me, and it was so powerful that it reconnected me with him again. And what I began to do was I began to envision myself in my heart garden, which was like a visual garden. It can be anything that you want, any sacred space or any sanctuary that you want in your mind's eye. And imagine yourself and Jesus or God or anybody that you want there. Just imagine yourself there with that person. It's a safe space, it's a sanctuary, it's a sacred space for you to connect. And what I would do is I would just imagine me and Jesus having tea and having conversation. And sometimes my counterpart would be there. And sometimes it was me having conversations with God there. But it was always a way for me to connect. And so have lunch, go for walks, go play on the playground in your mind's eye, in your heart garden. Whatever it is that you need to rebuild a connection, that personal connection back to God or back to Jesus or back to another, do so within the heart space, do so within the energy field, and allow yourself to envision it. And so that worked for me, and I shared that on the Patreon live stream, and that seemed to help you guys. You guys seem to enjoy that. See if it works for you. I feel like the Mashlins are doing something similar. Now, not in the same way, obviously, but they're having a personal connection back to God, back to themselves, back to their higher self. They're connecting again. And again, they're going to do so in a number of different ways, maybe through a couple of different avenues, maybe through different beliefs, but it's all back to the root of connection. And so with the world here, it's like this is the beginning. I'm hearing Alpha and Omega. This is the ending and the beginning happening all at once with the world here. A phase of their journey has come to a close, but it's like they're recognizing that the whole world is available to them. That they have been operating in a very limited mindset or through a very limited means or through a very limited heart space. And so now there's this huge expansion that is happening where they're recognizing that the whole world is opening up to them, and that the way in which they were living their life or viewing their life or viewing connection or viewing relationship was based on old beliefs, old templates, and that they don't have to follow that anymore. And so there's a huge expansion that's coming out here, and it's going to resonate with everybody in a little bit of a different way, so just take it as it resonates for you. But there's a huge expansion that's happening here, and it's like the world is opening up to them again, where again they felt very confined, they felt very limited, and I'm even hearing they felt very trapped in who they were. It's almost like, this is who I am, this is who I've always been, and nothing's going to change. But everything changes. You are a change maker. You are an evolutionary creature. You are meant for evolution. You are meant for growth. And growth is, by definition, change. And so that's not something to be afraid of. That's something to embrace. And the more that you embrace that and surrender to that and release the resistance to that, the more your soul is guiding the way, and you're opening up to just new realms of adventure and liberation and love. And the masculine is beginning to really understand this and embrace this. It's a really beautiful energy of expansion, liberation, and love. just like I said, and love. So it's like the whole world is lighting up again. There's so much potential, but where they might have been afraid of that potential in the past, now it's like they're moving towards it. They might have been afraid of their potential within themselves. Maybe because in the past they had looked at themselves as failures, or they gave up, or they weren't able to succeed, or they weren't able to meet expectations, whether their own expectations or expectations of others. And so they kind of shied away from their own potential. But now what's happening is they're opening up to their highest potential, because that's what they're choosing for their life and for themselves, not because of other people, because that's what they're choosing. That's what they want for themselves, because that's where their soul is guiding them. And they're in tune with their soul now. They're in alignment with their soul. I'm also getting this energy of not allowing the mind to dictate anymore, not allowing the mind to play on their fears, play on their doubts, play on past patterns. They're learning discernment, wherein they apply that logical and practical aspect of the mind, but they're also recognizing, okay, this is a past fear, this is a doubt. I can work through it. I don't have to keep myself trapped in that doubt or trapped in that fear. The pull of their soul is guiding them. The pull of their soul is stronger than the confinement within their mind, the pressure that their mind, the doubt within their mind. They're really learning to trust in themselves. They're really learning how to trust in themselves by tuning into their heart, by tuning into their inner guidance, and learning what their inner guidance is versus what the ego is. Using that discernment. This is ego, this is fear, this is doubt, and this is love, this is expansion, this is peace. We did a reading a number of months ago, a year ago, I don't remember, called Follow Your Peace on Susan Dawn Ascension Connections. It was a sacred channeling. Follow the peace. If it feels anxious, if it feels confining, if it feels restrictive, then that's not the direction to go in. And definitely don't force it. But if it feels peaceful, trust in that. Follow that. Let that guide you. Follow the peace. And they're beginning to understand and use that discernment. Everything's opening up for the divine masculine. It feels really beautiful. The last thing they want me to point out is the 2 and the 9 comes down to an 11 number. I feel like they are very conscious of this connection. I don't feel like they're in resistance to this connection anymore. I do feel like they don't know how to move forward. That's kind of holding them back right now. But again, they're in a little bit of a hermit energy, a little bit of a cocoon phase. I feel like they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure out what direction to go in. And they're going to let their heart kind of lead them there. There might be, I'm getting a little bit of resistance to that, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you're wrong. I'm getting a little bit of resistance to that. But that's ego. And I feel like that's going to kind of dissolve as they allow themselves to surrender more. They're going to let their heart guide them. They're learning how to let their heart guide them. They're learning what their heart wants. And again, it's like discernment, learning what their heart truly wants. So it's beautiful energy. Divine Feminine, what's coming through for you? Divine Feminine. We have rest and rejuvenation. We talked about this in the last Sacred Union Energy Update, where Divine Feminines, you have been kind of in this period of maybe even isolation for you as well, is the word that I'm getting, but rest, where everything kind of feels like it's a pause, it's slowed down. For myself, I shared that I was having a lot of delays, but it was almost like the delays were so that I could rest. I was sleeping a lot, I was taking care of my physical body, and everything was kind of put off so that I could do that. And it feels like it's preparation. That's what this feels like. You see how there's so much, like he's in this like meditative state, this rest state, and there's so much energy that's accumulating around him. This is that preparation. There's so much energy because that energy is preparing for forward movement. And I feel like by the Lion's Gate, there's going to be a lot of forward momentum that's coming through. Changes, transformations, growth, but especially within the physical world. For some, this could be new jobs, this could be relocation, this could be travel, this could be new relationships. Many of you have new relationships that are coming in, higher level soulmate connections or new counterpart connections that are coming in, and you'll be meeting them very soon. Like you'll be meeting them, like it's in your energy field, like it's coming in very, very quickly. You can feel it. You might have even met people. This could be platonic relationships, networking. You've met new soul family that is going to pick up the pace and maybe bring in new opportunities for socializing, new opportunities for jobs, career. This could even be related to a counterpart connection, like the reunion with the counterpart. But there's a lot of forward momentum that is coming through here. And I feel like the next couple of months is going to be vital. I'm getting the next 6 months really important. Release the expectation, release the timing. But I do feel like there's going to be a lot of physical manifestations within the next couple of months. And I'm getting November as significant. So 8-8 feels like it's laying the groundwork and anchoring in that energy, integrating that energy in the physical. And it's almost like there's going to be from here now, from the 7-7 portal, moving forward into 717 beyond, the new moon in Cancer, the Lion's Gate. All this cosmic support energy is going to be picking up the momentum, and you're going to start seeing the manifestations in little bits and pieces within your physical world. And so it doesn't feel like it's some great big thing that's happening. It feels like little. It's not breadcrumbing. Let's be clear about that. It's not breadcrumbs, but it feels like forward movement, little steps to building. It was like a snowball effect, gathering that momentum, right? And I feel like by November, early December is what they're giving me. November, December, I feel like you're going to be able to look back and see the significant change that these 6 months have brought. So right now, looking ahead, is going to be like the snowball effect, building momentum, new careers, travel, relationships, networking, opportunities, whatever that looks like for you. It's going to look different for everybody, but those are like the main themes, right? It's going to be step by step by step, getting momentum, so that by the end of the year, by November and December, you're going to be able to look back and see significant change within your physical world and see what has changed within your physical world. It's going to be almost like fully anchored in by the end of the year. So this is all preparation energy. Rest as you feel called to rest, especially if you're feeling spiritually depleted or spiritually exhausted. This journey is a lot. There's a lot of healing. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of shadow work. There's a lot of recognizing the light within yourself. There's a lot of light codes that are coming in. Your physical body might be very tired as well. So there's a lot that is happening through your ascension journey. Take very good care of yourselves. Okay. Yeah, pointing me to the numbers, 1 and the 9 being a 10 number. So there's a huge completion, but from the completion comes the beginning. And I feel like by the end of the year, you're going to see the significant change, and you're going to be able to look back and say, oh, this is where it began. So very interesting. Union energies. What's coming through for the union energy? What do we need to know about the union energy here? The thinking woman, another 11 number. I'm seeing the butterflies, this energy of transformation. I'm getting this energy of... Let me get another card before I say anything. Okay. The third chakra, the solar plexus chakra. I'm getting this energy of, within the union, there is this decisions, this contemplation, these choices. It's almost like there is a turning point. There's a choice point. And we've been channeling that for the past couple of weeks as well, where it feels like the new story has started, but what exactly are you creating for your new story? You had planted those seeds, you have those desires are coming out, but it's like now it's like the details. Now it's like the nitty gritty. I'm going to use an example when it comes to writing, because that's what I know best. So when you are writing a novel, I don't plot, I usually just write, and it kind of just flows, and somehow or another it just all fits magically together. But then I have to go back through the book and edit to make sure that everything is in alignment, that there are no plot holes, that the characters have depth and there's a richness to it. You have to fill in, after the first draft is created, you have to kind of fill in the pieces. That's what this energy kind of feels like. It feels like you have those desires, you have those manifestations, you planted those seeds, and those seeds are beginning to bloom and take root. But now it's like you get to really make those little decisions and make those little choices. It's like you get to nurture those manifestations. And how are you going to nurture it? There's a specific phrase that I'm trying to bring through, and I just can't quite grasp it for this. It's like specified. You get to specify now. It's like you get to really narrow in on those manifestations. You get to really narrow in on what you want to do. It's almost like a revision process. And so I feel like that's what's happening now. There's this choice point, there's this turning point within this new story that you've started for your union, this new phase of your journey, this higher heart ascension, this higher level of your journey, where you are really connecting with the counterpart, with the union energy. But it's like, okay, really specifying, what does that look like? What do those manifestations really look like? It's like if you're planning a trip. Well, I know I want to go abroad, but where specifically do I want to go, and how am I going to get there? It's like the details. That's what it is. It's like the details. You're really narrowing in on the specifics, narrowing in on the details. That's what I feel like is happening here with the solar plexus energy. It's like you're doing so from a place of embodiment, from a place of that inner strength, from a place of that inner knowing. And when I say inner knowing, I mean that inner identity, that anchored in to your embodiment, anchored into the as above so below, right? Anchored into from the spirit to the human. That's what anchoring in is, because you don't deny the human aspect of yourself. You have a life experience for a purpose, but you are anchoring in all the spiritual tools and all the spiritual resources and your higher self and your connection to God. You're anchoring that in, bringing that down into your physical form, into your physical world and your life experience. And so with all that higher knowledge and awareness and wisdom anchored in, it's like now you get to really pay attention to the details of what it is that you're manifesting, what it is that you're creating. And I feel like that's where you are within the human, the union, I should say, because as humans, you have a physical relationship too, and we talked a little bit about that in the recent you haven't met the new me yet channeling. It's like you yes, your union is an energetic union of souls. Yes, it is an energetic connection, but you are also a physical being. And so, what does that relationship look like? Is it a friendship? Is it a business partnership? Is it a marriage? Is it family? Do you want to travel together? Do you want to build a business together? Do you want to create a family together? Do you want to have children? What does that look like within your physical world? And so that's what this feels like. It feels like getting into alignment and on the same page with regards to your physical world now. And that takes, knowing yourself. That takes commitment. That takes communication with your partner. And if you're not in connection with anybody, if you're not in connection with a partner, or you're not reunited, or whatever the scenario is, then this is just acknowledging within yourself, what do you dream of? What do you want? And then your counterpart adds value to that. Your counterpart should not take away from your dream. Your counterpart should add to your dream and support that dream. So I feel like that's what this energy is. This is about bringing it down into the physical form and paying attention to the details of the manifestations. What is it that you want? What's in the details? What is it that you want to create? Not just from a broad perspective, but narrowed in. So thinking about that, creating that, and manifesting that for your own life. Creating that for your own life so that when you do come together with your counterpart, you do so on the same page, so that you add that value, you add that connection, you add that to each other. You share those same dreams. That doesn't mean that everything is going to be the same, but you do have to be on the same page so that you can support each other. All right, that is going to be it. Yeah, appreciation at the bottom of the deck, so that you support each other and appreciate each other. Again, you don't have to have the exact same dreams and do the exact same thing. That's what makes a relationship really juicy and adventurous. But you do have to appreciate and support and believe in one another. And that's what makes a healthy connection. Beautiful. All right, we'll be back with more Sacred Union energy updates. Patreon subscribers, like I said, you will have a very special reading plus other Sacred Union energy updates coming up this week, and we'll be back. I'm sending lots of love and lots of light.